Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. In today's video I want to talk about Resident Evil 3 Remake Nemesis. And I know I want to talk about the fact that Nemesis in the remake was actually a lot different from the one in the original. For example, in the original game, Nemesis appeared a lot more than in the remake. However, due to the time, Nemesis was also limited by the engine and what it was capable of doing. All he could do was run and at times firing with the rocket launcher, but that was all. However, in the remake, Nemesis can grab you with his tentacle from the distance. It can infect other people with those parasites that poop over the zombies' heads or something like that. Anyway, so of course that in this version Nemesis is a lot more dangerous. So imagine if this Nemesis actually got the game mechanics of this Nemesis. I mean, the way it runs and attacks, and its violent display of power, then I can say that this Nemesis then would have been a pain in the ass, because unlike the original, this one, the remake, can also jump. And imagine if it also had that resilience in the game mechanics. Oh boy, it would have been a nightmare, a real nightmare. I also heard about complaining the fact that there was no Nemesis in Chaos campaign in the RPD, but I understand why, because given the game mechanics of how Nemesis works, and the RPD is actually a tight space, I mean a tight location, then Nemesis would own you almost all the time, or all the times, and also depending on which difficulty you'd play. So I think the reason why they nerfed Nemesis was the fact of the game mechanics. You understand me? Because if it was just like his classic counterpart, you wouldn't stand a chance in this remake. So they had to nerf him a little bit. That's why it also appears mainly in cutscenes, because they tried somehow to balance. Because how to say to you, Resident Evil 3. Let's make a fact. Let's state a fact. Let's state a fact. The original Nemesis is not a survival horror asset. This guy is actually a horror action asset, a horror action element. So it was naturally that if they tried to make the sequel of the remake to a more survival horror way, of course they also had to nerf him and make him in more survivalist way like Mr. X. So I think that's also what they are trying to do. You understand me? Because in the original, Nemesis is not a survival horror asset. I don't know if you have played survival horror games, but let's say for example Alien Isolation, for example, you have the working Joes, the aliens. They all move, most of the time they all move at a slower pace than you. Of course the alien sometimes breaks it because, well, it's an alien, and when it runs at you it kills you, but the point is that they all move slow. For example, Outlast, even in Outlast, those bosses, they also run a lot slower than you, but they can instantly kill you. So it stands to reason that in the remake they were actually trying to make Nemesis more of a survival horror element, and I know in this edition Nemesis was actually going down much easier with the grenade, but it was obviously done with realistic or story purposes. I don't know how to explain to you, because this is what I found. Okay, so let's go. Okay, oh, I think this is the one. Oh, I fucking hate ads. I fucking hate them. Oh shit, another ad. Fuck you, ad. Probably I'm gonna cut this, I don't know. Okay, so... okay, where the... okay, here it is. See, so it took Carlos only one shot to pin it down, and this was in a cutscene which works as a story element, and it only took one shot. This is also the equivalent of a grenade, and if you doubt about that, let's okay, let's see. So see, this is why. You see, if you look at all the situation Jill has been through, you'll see that she actually has scars on her shoulders, and she was obviously getting hurt a lot. So it's obvious that this game was more of a cinematic experience. That's why everything feels so different. Because let's face it, there was a lot of, or should I say, there was more effort put into the story and characters compared to Resident Evil to the remake. Of course, it was also a different theme, but you know, the way characters acted, it was really cringy. Even the ending felt, I don't know, if this game didn't feel like really it had the conclusion. So they came out of the bunker at the end, or whatever it was, station. Oh yeah, that Umbrella Corporation scientific facility, and they were all like, so what are we gonna do now? There was no conclusion to the story, but in the ending of the remake, third installment, there was actually a conclusion where Jill says that it was human greed responsible for what happened to Raccoon City. So it was the humans that thought they were the actual monsters. Even in the original, it wasn't really. It wasn't even the original ending in the third installment, Resident Evil 3. It wasn't really that much, really. So yeah, we can say that this game has technical problems, Resident Evil 3, because it actually does. However, this game was obviously focused a lot more on the story aspect, and there is really nothing wrong with that. I know people say that remake is a disgrace and they did nothing good, but people fail to see that they actually improved on the characters' personalities, and that's a good thing. Of course, now it depends what you prefer as a game, the story or the gameplay part, but the fact is that they have improved the story, and that's a fact. So they have an A+. Now for the gameplay part is something else, but you can't really, you can't really qualify a game being bad just or good just from a single aspect. So it's really up to you if you welcome those changes or not. Did you like the fact that the original Resident Evil 2 remake was a cinematic experience? Well, maybe you did, maybe you didn't, but that's all subjective. Yeah, I agree that the gameplay part has problems, but it's obvious that this game was supposed to be a cinematic experience of sort, and I believe that's why also a lot of content was cut, because even more with the story. Anyways, I know they say that Capcom was greedy, but they did the same back in the old days. They actually released Resident Evil 3, the original, shortly 1 year after Resident Evil 2, and at the same time people actually complained about the length of Resident Evil 3 and how short it actually was, because Resident Evil 3 was supposed to be a chapter to Veronica, so in a way you could say that the Resident Evil 3 was some sort of DLC back in the days. But I'll tell you why this doesn't happen. I will tell you that Resident Evil 3, Nemesis the original, it's really a DLC. But now there is the fun part, because in the original they were more, how to say, sneaky, or they were better at hiding it. That's why they introduced so many areas, so many puzzles, like the packing water puzzle. If you take a look at the game and what Jill is doing in the original, you will see that it kinda makes no sense of all the puzzles she solves. They are there just to fill up the game. You understand me? It's also the fact that in the old days it was much easier to make more maps, more content to add, because the graphics were like a mess, so you had more time to focus on the how to say, gameplay or level part, much easier than it is nowadays, because you have to take into account the graphics, how the characters move. So yeah, Resident Evil 3 remake is like Resident Evil 3 the original if it was done today, and if it didn't lie itself with nonsense puzzles. So yeah, no, I'm not saying that this game is better than Resident Evil 2. I'm not saying that either of them are better than Resident Evil 2. They are actually, you can say they are equally bad or equally good in their own way. So for gameplay, if you want gameplay, play Resident Evil 3. But if you are for the story, play Resident Evil 3, the remake. Anyways guys, this was my video for today. Yeah, the right game for the wrong time. Yeah, anyways guys, I also think the reason they cut the clock towers due it to the story part, because in Resident Evil 3 the remake, the chopper actually comes a lot early, and in the original the only reason Jill went to the clock tower was so she could call for the chopper. So with that specific element in the story coming way earlier in the game, in the remake, of course they cut the clock tower itself. Thank you for watching this video. Until then, a happy day to everyone. Oh yeah, and don't forget to share and subscribe.